Today marks the coming of spring, a return long awaited, a trigger of hope, of warmth and wellness, of new life yet to come. The sun begins her waltz towards her glory, long dormant under winter's frigid hold. The rivers are beginning to flow again, their icy coverings breaking to pieces before disappearing downstream. Everything is starting to move. Everything is about to awaken. Today, the cycle begins again. The movement many have waited impatiently for. The cogs of the time clock cease their halt, anxiously treading to walk through the door. And suddenly, I can breathe again. The long, harsh winter is over. The sap that hardened in my core begins to drip steadily, like a heartbeat. Drip, drip, drip. And it's like I've been suffocating myself, holding my breath for much longer than I can. And finally, I take a large inhale. I had forgotten how lovely oxygen is. I have to regain my footing. I have to regain my focus. I have to regain my feelings, center myself, and move forward from this moment. The sky casts gray shadows because I painted them that way. But I've bought a new canvas, and the future is bright with color. From this moment on, I will not make myself to suffer. From this moment on, I will breathe freely again.
Hi! My name is Taylor and I'm the Tempest Witch here on YouTube. Today, being February 1st, marks the coming of spring. Some people refer to it as Imbolc, some people refer to it as the celebration of the coming of spring, some call it Bridget's Day, some call it just the end of winter, but the general gist is days are going to start getting longer, nights are starting to get shorter, and we know that spring is on the horizon, and that is a reason to celebrate. Winter marks the death part of the cycle. So once spring starts to come, it starts rebirth all over again, and we start seeing green outside, the snow melts away, water starts rushing, everything starts to come alive again. So today I'm going to show you kind of how I set up my altar and kind of clean it, because part of Imbolc is doing spring cleaning, out with the old, in with the new, and try to just kind of appreciate this time and that everything is going to start moving forward again. I have my grimoire here. I figured I would go through what Imbolc has for symbolism, what kind of vibe you're going for the day, things that I can put on my altar and things you can use on your own altar if you have access to one. If you make one, if you're still in the closet, you can do small versions of this, but just so you kind of get the general vibe. And of course, I should have marked my page first, but I did not. So many pages. Imbolc is from February 1st to the 2nd, and some call it the return of spring or Bridget's Day, as I said. Some symbols for the day are fire in the form of flames, candles, crowns, and the hearth. Water is another symbol, which you can represent in a cauldron with springs and wells and chalices. Grain is another symbol, which you can make into Bridget's wheels, corn and oak, goddess effigies, Bridget's bed, and just seeds. I have a whole bunch of seeds from my garden last year that I'm going to be putting on my altar just to bless them, so that when it starts to warm up around here, I can plant them and I know that they are infused with my intentions of growing big and strong and letting me have a great harvest this year. Some of the creatures for Imbolc would be white cows with red ears, wolves, snakes, swans, and vultures. Like I said, it's the renewal of the cycle. And finally, some talisman would include mirrors, spinning wheels, grain, and goblets. Some customs and traditions for Imbolc include taking down all your Yule greens and burning them, which I plan on doing some of that today. Spring cleaning, obviously. I've already done that. My kitchen is clean for the first time in a couple weeks, so. Lighting fires for inspiration and creativity. I'm going to do that in the form of candles because it is still a little bit cold to dig out my fire pit, so probably do that later when things start warming up, but not today. Obviously, today is a day for sex and anything sexual because it is the renewal of the year, so do with that what you will. Be safe. Using birch today is a really good thing because it is attributed to fertility and cleansing. So some people use a birch branch to sweep up their house, to try and get all of the winter intentions out and bring in some new ones. I don't have a birch branch, but I do have a birch log that my mother gave me. So I'm probably going to incorporate that into my altar this year. Divination is really important today, specifically pertaining to future welfares and family prosperity. So anything you've been kind of sitting on, thinking about all winter, now would be the time to start getting a plan together of how you're going to make that happen. How are you going to manifest what you're thinking about? Feasting is also a really good thing today. I know with COVID, people aren't having grand, elaborate get-togethers, but even just having a time with your friends over FaceTime or on Skype or Zoom or whatever you're using these days, Discord even, just have some interaction with your friends, talk about what you're cooking, what you're doing. Something is good. And then also you can hold private rituals to honor your ancestors because today is the end of the death cycle and the rebirth cycle will start anew. So honoring those who came before you is a really good thing to do today. And now for altar decorations. We've talked about some of these, so some of them will be repeated, but we're going off what I wrote. It's fine. So colors, red and white, obviously, because white stands for snow, red for lifeblood, and then green for the growing life to come. Plants, specifically like potted bulbs, daffodils, anything that you plant at the end of fall so that they freeze in winter and then they start regrowing. Daffodils obviously is the big one there. I love daffodils. They're my favorite in spring. Also forsythias, snowdrops, and crocuses. So if you know any of those, definitely a good thing to incorporate into your altar. I already talked about cauldrons and chalices because they are symbolic of healing waters. Bridget is a healing goddess. An anvil and a hammer because Bridget is also the goddess of smithcraft. So anything you create with your hands would be a really good thing to do today because it honors her. And then poetry, literature of any kind really to incorporate in today. So whether you want to make up some kind of poem, kind of get the vibe if you're a writer, really good thing to do today. Doing any kind of fae work. I'm hesitant to say that you should work with the fae just because most people haven't done nearly enough research to be able to do it and not offend them. So proceed with caution. That's what I'll say. Proceed with caution. I condone nothing. Do what you will. Be careful. And then obviously healing herbs and lots of candles. So right now, my altar for winter is a mess, so we're going to clean that up, and then we're going to start anew, like all sorts of spring cleaning. We're going to take out the old, bring in the new, and it's going to end up being beautiful, and everything's going to be awesome. That's the plan. Let's do it. All right, I'm giving you a real before and after shot because I want to be honest, and this is kind of what happens after a while when I leave an empty space. There wasn't really anything here. My winter altar was actually in my living room, so this is kind of my empty space that I've been holding things in, and as you can tell, it's a mess. So we're going to clean this off, and then we'll start fresh.
I got copyrighted last time I made a video.
Bam, it is clean. So here's the fun part, figuring out where I want things. I personally like to start with an altar cloth. This is just an old piece of fabric that I have that I use every year just because it's covered in roses. And it's got wax all over it, and it's kind of a hot mess, but then again, so am I, so it's fine. I figure this is a good opportunity to cleanse our space with the Yule grains we're going to be burning and just do that. Ready for that witchy ASMR? Now I have some of these cedar bundles that I dried over winter, but I'm not going to be burning all of them, obviously, because that would be a lot, but just a little bit goes a long way. And just in case you didn't know, cedar and pine are actually really good replacements for white sage, because you probably shouldn't be using white sage unless you get it from an indigenous person or shop. Otherwise, cedar's right outside, guys. It's free, it works amazing, it's just as powerful, and you're not appropriating someone else's culture. All good things. And then just because I find that it helps with smoke, I use these turkey feathers that I found outside while on one of my walks. And I find that it just brushes it all around, cleanses all of the space. It smells so good. This is why you use dried, because it isn't nearly as fiery. If you use fresh stuff, it pops and it sizzles and it expels sparks everywhere. And we're not trying to do that. Don't light your house on fire, please. Alright, our space is cleansed. It feels so much more positive and not stagnant at all, so now I feel like we are ready to decorate. This is my lovely rose plant. I have kept her alive from a seed since last spring. She's doing great. One of her first flowers just recently fell off, which I'm really proud of her, but this corner gets really, really good light, so I'm going to put her back here, so give her the best fighting chance, as well as this African violet that my friend gave me a cutting of, and she's doing so well. She needs to be watered, but it's very dry up here, so she's going to go in that corner as well. I'm currently keeping some green onions alive, and they have bulbs on the inside. They're doing very well in this cup of water and dirt, so they're going to go on as well. Alright, I'm going to talk about my ducks because I love them. These are my ducks. I found them at a thrift store for like $1, and they're adorable, and they have little eggs that didn't really come with them, but I put them as a set, and they're great.
Here's some more awkward music that you didn't want, but you're getting anyway, because I need to fill space.
People tend to ask me, especially when they come to my house, where do I get all my decorations? And if I'm being honest, literally just thrift shops. This is being funny. Oh, that's why. Real time. Watch the chaos. It's fine. There we go. Like, you can get bundles of fake flowers if you can't have real flowers, or if it's way too cold where you are at, like me. We're gonna put the money bowl back because we're looking for some abundance. Since I haven't been to the thrift store in, it seems like too long, I'm kind of lacking in candles, so I'm going to probably not be using the colors like I recommended, but I'm going to be using things that hold the same kind of significance. So, got a yellow candle that I'm going to put back here. Actually, no, I want it to not start on fire. Representing the sun. I've got a gold candle that I'll put here that'll represent the sun coming back and golden rays and everything. You know, it's all symbolic. For this being a fertility holiday, I'm going to take this off of my Love Freya altar. It's just a bunch of rose petals that I dried. So keep that there, as well as 2 elixirs for love and attraction that have rose oil in them. I'm also going to be putting my spell jar from mine and my partner's 5th anniversary. And I figure we just ended off with a bunch of ivy. And after a little bit of rearranging, it's it's done. Obviously it's a little chaotic, but that's what I want in my life, and I think it turned out pretty great. Alright guys, well I hope you liked this video. Setting up altars is kind of one of the favorite parts of my craft, so it was nice to be able to share it with somebody. Usually it's just kind of me doing things for my own aesthetic purposes, but now I have you, so I can kind of show you what I'm doing, which is pretty cool. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's actually right here, so that's why I keep looking this way. Imbolc is very important. It might not necessarily be a Norse holiday or tradition, but I'm sure they had something similar to it that went by a different name. So I figure it's 2021. Practice whatever holiday you want, practice whatever tradition you want. As long as it makes you happy and it follows your own path, go for it. That's all I've got for today. Until next time, Skull.